The topic of this video is democracy and the middle class. Now, if you got little ones around, you may want to take your computer into your bedroom and listen to it there because I'm going to use some strong, mighty, strong language. Now, the fundamental problem with Western democracy is that it's all about sucking middle class dick. The entire focus is on the middle class. And there is an incestuous relationship between business, big business, the middle class, and democracy. Pollies go around sucking middle class dick simply because that's where the bulk of the votes are to be gotten. Gotten. Um, so if you're a homeowner and middle class, expect a knock at the door at election time as a poly comes around wanting to suck your dick, and there'll be a little something in the budget just for you, like all the typical stuff, like homeowner stuff and a little money here, a little money there, maybe something for the kids. That's all good and well, but what happens to veterans, the elderly, the dispossessed, the marginalized, the mentally ill, the disabled? And the hits just keep on coming. Well, the pollies treat them with depraved indifference. Let me say that again. Depraved indifference. And that is reflected in the media. That is reflected in the mentality of the middle class that doesn't give a rat's arse about anybody but itself. Now, every so often, the middle class and the pollies, who are also middle class, um, like to pretend that they care, that they're going to do something for the marginalized and the aged and the infirm and all that, and they'll make a show of it, and then nothing gets done. I went through a lot of documents looking for information on this very subject and how seniors are treated with depraved indifference. Every so often, the media will make a stink and they'll follow up story and they'll hound pollies about the abysmal, abominable treatment of seniors in long-term care. And I have read complaints in newspapers dating well back into the 19th century on this very subject. And the public gets a little stirred by it when the media says, oh, this is such a horrible thing, and they write about it, and nothing gets done. And then in the 1890s, again, they make a stink about, old Civil War vets in the United States and how they're being treated. And then they make a stink about it, and then nothing gets done. And then you have the First World War veterans. And I well remember the little shacks that they were holed up in North Vancouver when I was a child. They were called neighborhood house, and they were kind of like condos, if you could call them that. They were like rooms for veterans, and they weren't suites. They were rooms. They were about the size of a jail cell. They were that small. When I was driving cab many years ago, I picked up many of these old boys, and these were First World War vets when I started out. And they were going to Legions and FOEs and Eagles clubs and all the old all the usual suspects where veterans used to go. And these guys lived in abominable conditions, and they went to drink their brains out because they were so poorly taken care of. And these were the guys who fought for their country. Now, in the United States, uh, the veterans were not only treated poorly, but there was something called the Bonus March on Washington. World War One vets trying to get uh, a bonus, or trying to get something to make their lives better. Well, two SOBs whose names you will be familiar with crushed the Bonus March. Their names were Dwight Eisenhower and Patton, George Patton, two of the worst cocksuckers in U.S. history. Eisenhower committed an abomination against American troops at the Battle of the Bulge, wherein he would take guys off the front and who were mentally ruined from being put back in the front and back at the front and back at the front and back at the front. If you hunt around, you can find old black and white, of course, uh, film of documentaries done of the horrors that were done to these men. And they were mentally destroyed, thrown back into battle over and over. That's how much Ike cared for his men. He was a cocksucker, evil son of a bitch. No polite way of putting it. And Patton was part of that. Hero my ass. Anyway, what has this got to do with the middle class? Well, these old veterans from the First World War were put into these little cells in North Vancouver in Neighborhood House when I was a kid, the size of a jail cell. What kind of a life is that for men who very nearly gave their lives fighting for their country? But that's the treatment they got. And the middle class was content to hide them away in these little cubicles and drive past and, what's in those buildings? Oh, well, that's where the veterans live. And that's about as much as they knew about it. It was what's that word? Great old word, oubliette. A place where you put people that you want to forget about. It's kind of like a dungeon. You put them there to rot. Much the same happened with the Second World War vets. They eventually tore down the old neighborhood house buildings and put up new neighborhood house buildings where they squirreled the vets away. And these were the ones who they could still go out and buy groceries and tobacco and go out and drink until they were pissing themselves, sitting in their armchair and setting their beards on fire. They were just able to take care of themselves, and that's all the care they got. The middle class didn't care. The pollies didn't care. Nobody cared. Well, this is the problem with Western democracy. Western democracy is all about sucking middle class dick, people who don't need their dicks sucked. They got houses, they got jobs, and the economy looks after them. But the economy does not look after the disenfranchised, the mentally ill, veterans, seniors, the dispossessed. Grinding systemic poverty. I saw a lot of that. People who were, especially women, who had been IV drug using prostitutes for generations. Their mothers, their grandmothers, their great grandmothers had been prostitutes in my grandparents' and my great grandparents' day. in the, say, the Hawks and Hastings area, a systemic problem, they die at a rate. Well, when I was driving cab 20 years ago, or 20 some odd years ago, in that area, 300 to 350 were dying every year, and nobody did squat about it. Now I understand the number is in the thousands, and the new evil is fentanyl. No, the evil is not fentanyl. Fentanyl is just a drug. The problem is depraved indifference from the middle class. Now, one day, this is going to come back to haunt the middle class, because eventually what happens is uh, a chance arises for these people to get back at the liberals and conservatives who ignored them all this time. Now, there is talk, and there has always been talk, of making voting mandatory. Well, if you've been shat on by the middle class, voting for people who don't represent your interests is not the way to go. You're going to run into some big time trouble. And the chickens will come home to roost one day when a fascist comes along and wants to stick it to liberal and conservative alike. Now, when that happens, and it will happen one day, the liberal and conservative types will be wetting their knickers and going, why are they voting for these people? Why would anybody vote for a fascist? And it's because of generations of depraved indifference by you, the middle class, the very people who at this moment are generating the fascist rise in Western political conservatism. It's everywhere. We have it in Canada. They had a little scare with it in Germany recently. They have it in the GOP in the States. And these people are always right wing Christian kooks. And the poorest of them don't care about conservative democracy, because conservative democracy has never done them any favors. They are not going to support liberal democracy. Liberal democracy has never done them any favors, but they will support fascists, the very people who are going to stick it to the liberals and conservatives alike. And who cares what the fallout is? They treated us with depraved indifference for generations. Tear it all down, drag it down, and send it straight into the gutter. It's what they deserve.